What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Feelin A Draft. I am your host, Dan Kornhauser. And tonight I have a special guest host, a co host with me tonight, Bobby Hunt, good friend of mine. We've done shows forever. Bob, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. And we're on the eve of draft day, only less than 24 hours. I'm super excited. So I'm very happy that you invited me, and I look forward to a great show.
Well, we were supposed to have my good pastor on. He had other responsibilities, being an adult, being a coach, doing coach stuff, teaching quarterbacks. So not tonight, unfortunately. But soon, Mike will be on the show. We'll be able to break down his thoughts on the quarterback class, offensive line is his thing, prospects all around. We'll see what's what. But I just want to jump right into it. Let me do this. It's time, Bob. We're here. I'm submitting my final mock draft of the 2025 NFL draft season to the Huddle Report. I'm hopeful to finish higher than where I did last year, which I'm happy where I finished, but you always want to be first. If you ain't first, you're last, right?
Yes, exactly. But you had a good year last year, and between me, you, and Greg, you did do the best of us three.
Well, that's like being the least dumb monkey in the monkey pen.
Okay. I don't
So
go back to previous years. I'm giving you credit, so take it.
we'll take it. But so let's jump right in. Um, I'm going to reveal my top 10 of my mock draft at the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that. You're only going to get the top 10. I am a tease. I promise you'll like it. And if you want to see the rest of the first round mock, which is probably going to be the best mock out there, you're going to want to go to the Grueling Truth. You're going to want to check that out. It's going to be a simple 1 through 32. I'm not sure if I'll be doing a trade at the end of the first round or not. I normally don't project trades, but we'll touch on that later. Let's jump into it. I got 5 questions. Number 1, Bob, over under QBs 2.
I have to go with over on this one. I've said it too for a while. I do think Jackson Dart gets into the first round, not necessarily because he's an outstanding prospect or that he so deserves to be up there in the first round, but just the fact that teams always put such a premium on the position, understandably so. We know it is the most important position in the NFL, but there's some things to like. He's gotten better each year at Ole Miss. He has played a lot of football. If we're looking at some comps, I'm sure you have a few. One I've heard lately that I do kind of like, and he didn't play quite as many games as this guy, but he was drafted just last year, and that's Bo Nix. Kind of similar stature and build, maybe an inch shorter, but also someone that can do a lot of RPOs, which is very popular now in the NFL as well, not just college football. Uh, Played in the SEC, clearly being at Ole Miss for 2 or 3 seasons with Lane Kiffin, following him from USC. So I'm going to go with over. I do think clearly Cam Ward's going to be the number 1 pick. That's what you're going to have mocked. That's what I have mocked, and damn near everyone else is going to have mocked. It's Cam Ward 1. I do think Shador Sanders stays in the first round, even though there's just negativity seemingly daily about Shador Sanders and where he'll fall to. I do think he winds up in the first round, and then my third would be Jackson Dart. Of course, there could be other guys, but I think it'll be 3. So I will say the over 2.
So I wanted to have sand and I wanted to say under, but realistically, at the very least, I think we're going to get 2. Um, that kind of segues into my next question, where I think it's just as possible that we get only 1 quarterback in the first round compared to getting 3 quarterbacks in the first round. And I say that because there's been a lot of reporting that says there's teams that don't have Sanders with a first round grade. There's teams that don't have Jackson Dart with a first round grade. So if that's the case, and teams are just like, you know what, after Sanders drops out of the top 10, most of the teams in the teens don't need quarterbacks. So what, Pittsburgh at 21 is the most likely scenario at this point for Sanders if he drops, unless somebody trades up for him. And if Pittsburgh balks, then what? At that point, someone's going to have to trade up for him and or Dart to end that. In Sanders' case, to end the fall. But I don't have first round grades on either of those guys, Dart or Sanders, and it's not to say that I think either of them are bad prospects. I did touch on this last night on last night's episode right here on Feelin A Draft. But there's just, if I put a first round grade on a guy, I don't want to have as many questions. And none of my first round grades are ever perfect. None of the first round prospects this year, even the blue chip guys, they're not perfect. They can all improve. That's fine. They're all young. That's why you get them. They're not at their peak at this point. But too many questions for Sanders off the field for me. It's we heard about it today, the cockiness and what was the other thing? Arrogance or whatever? Entitlement. That's what it was. The cockiness and the entitlement. Now, we obviously don't really see that, but I can get where someone would get that impression of him because he does seem very confident. He does seem very sure of himself, of his ability, of his talents and whatnot, of his placement in this draft class. And he believes he should be the number one pick, as all these guys do. But I can see where it comes off as arrogant in a way. And I mean, we've talked about this since it happened earlier in the season. I hated the fact that he called out his offensive line early in the season. Let's be completely honest. Joe Burrow gets absolutely assaulted behind his offensive line. It's been happening since he was a rookie. He's already gotten injured because of it multiple times in his career because the O-line is so awful. And I mean, they try. They've added pieces. It's not like, they're just not doing anything and adding mid-round picks and hoping those mid-round picks pan out. Like they're spending first-round picks. They're spending free agent money. They're trying, but their O-line sucks. This guy's getting beat up. I have never heard Joe Burrow go on ESPN or whatever and be like, yo, my offensive line fucking sucks, dude. I can't throw and block. And why doesn't he do that? It's not just because he's a professional. It's because you don't do that. You don't throw your teammates under the bus. You're the quarterback. You're supposed to be the leader of the team. You're the face of the franchise. This is why the team picks you. This is why you get the big bucks. Sometimes you got to go up there and eat crow. It doesn't matter if you went out there, threw for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks, and you guys lost, in a shootout. But, you also got sacked 5 or 6 times and we're constantly under pressure. You don't go out there and say, oh, well, my offensive line, they're just so bad. I could have done so much better. We probably should have won. It's like, nah, you take that. We lost. We sucked. The offense sucked. That's my fault. But all that aside, Dart or Sanders, who goes first?
I still think it's Sanders. There's no defense of what you were just talking about. I hated that too. Can't be throwing your teammates under the bus. No matter what position you play, but like you mentioned, when you're the quarterback, you're supposed to be the leader of the team. That's unacceptable. Just not the right thing to do. There's clear issues with Sanders, no doubt about it. He drifts back too much, takes unnecessary sacks, doesn't have the greatest deep ball. The arm talent isn't that next level that you're really looking for at the NFL level. However, I do still think he's very accurate, which is always a boon in the NFL. It's rare that you see a guy change dramatically from college to the pros where, he was wildly inaccurate in college and then he's great in the pros accuracy wise. It just rarely happens. Maybe someone would point to an example like Josh Allen, but we can easily point back to it being Wyoming and him really not having many skill players around him. He has good touch. He leads his receivers very well. I know there was a lot of short passes, but there was also a lot of deep shots. It seemed like there wasn't a lot of intermediate work. And when I watch his tape, I don't think he's as poor of an athlete as people were making him out to be. He definitely shows the ability to escape the pocket, has good sense of the rush coming around him. It's just that he drifts back too much, and he doesn't always step up into the pocket if his first read isn't there. I still think he goes ahead of Dart. I know we saw one mock today that did have Dart going ahead of him. I believe it was Daniel Jeremiah's of the NFL Network. I can't see that happening. It would honestly shock me. Daniel Jeremiah is more plugged in, but you talked about it earlier. This is no one exactly knows. This is an inexact science for a reason. Not just us as fans or people or you studying the draft or Mike, anyone else is any better than the other. Yeah, you might have more accessibility to information, but we know NFL teams have numerous first round busts at quarterback over the years. There's probably, if we went through the first rounds of the last 10 to 15 years, we'd probably actually see more bust first round quarterbacks than all pros or Pro Bowlers. That's just the nature of the position. It's a
Mhm.
hard position to predict, and it trickles down to the other spots as well. So I think Sanders still gets into the first round. It may not be as high as we initially thought, or as I initially thought. Certainly, uh, maybe it's the Saints at 9, but it doesn't seem like they really worked him out. It seems like they've done more work with Dart. I still don't think that's a spot where Dart can go. So we're looking at probably the 20s to 32 for Sanders and Dart. I do think at the end of the day, Sanders goes ahead of him, but it might not be by a lot.
Okay. I'm gonna go Sanders goes first. And that's mostly because, as I've told you in our chats throughout this process, nothing against him personally, or even as a pro potentially, but Jackson Dart doesn't belong. And I know Mike is going to defend Jackson Dart. I know he likes Jackson Dart. He's said to me that he thinks Dart could be the best quarterback of this lot outside. I think he also likes Will Howard, the quarterback from Ohio State. But I know he's more of a fan of Dart than he is of Sanders. And I haven't gotten a read on him on Ward quite yet, but we'll definitely touch on that when I get him on the show. But I just don't think Dart belongs in the first round. And it's not because I don't think he can be an NFL starter. I think the potential's certainly there. Physically, he has everything you look for. But and he's gotten better each year in college. But the first read offense, like it's a simplified offense. A lot of his passes were on the first read. And while he does, like I said, he's got good aspects of his game, nothing really screams star quarterback. And sure, maybe you don't need everyone doesn't need to have that top 5 quarterback to win a Super Bowl or whatever, but I'll tell you what, it sure does effing help. And if I'm taking a guy in the top 5, top 10, top 20, like I want him to have that star potential. I don't want to just get an average starter or an okay backup or something like that. Like even especially at the quarterback position, if I'm spending that capital. So I've connected it similarly to how I felt about Anthony Richardson when he came out a couple of years ago. Different prospects and different reasons on why I was low on them. Like Richardson, I panned from the very beginning. The lack of accuracy, the lack of a plan back there, more of a thrower than a passer, relying too much on his athleticism. And behold, all those things came to fruition. Dart, I don't have those accuracy problems, and he knows how to play the position. I'm just not there. So I would say Sanders goes first. I'd say 2 quarterbacks go in the first round inevitably, especially based on all these rumors we're hearing. And with that, moving on to even before we do the rumors, Bob, you're a Giants fan. You're wearing one of your Giants hoodies. What is, I hate it. What is your ideal round 1 for the New York Giants? What does that mean to you as a fan?
Well, had we not won a meaningless game against the Colts in December, which I was very upset about, it should have been Cam Ward, and we wouldn't have had any debates or any conjecture about this really, because I've been saying Cam Ward's the number 1 for quite some time. But that is not the case. Alas, the Giants are picking number 3, and thank goodness at least the Patriots and Joe Milton helped out in that final week 18 game against the Buffalo Bills, so they dropped to 4. So at least Hunter or Carter will be there. For a while there, it seemed like it was going to be Hunter. Now, for the past 2 to 3 weeks, a lot of steam about the Browns picking Hunter at 2. So I think the ideal player right here is Abdul Carter. Not going to stray from what everyone's kind of expecting at this point. I do think he goes number 3 to the Giants. You can never have too many good pass rushers, and whether they trade Kayvon Thibodeau or not, I think it's going to help the defense. The defense looks like it's going to be a strength based on some of the moves they made last year, like trading for Brian Burns. Then this offseason, signing Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland in the secondary certainly will help. So even with Thibodeau in the fold, I like having multiple pass rushers. Dexter Lawrence should be back healthy after his injury, cut short his season. So to me, it has to be Abdul Carter at number 3.
Okay, I'm going to, spoiler alert, I'm going to agree with you. That's probably going to be who I have. Well, that's not probably. That's who I'm going to have at that number 3 spot for the Giants. Now, again, I said your ideal round 1. So does your ideal round 1 include trading up for a quarterback in the 20s should Sanders and or Dart be on the board? And if so, how high are you willing to go? The higher you go, the more you're trading. So where are we going? What are we doing?
Great question. So also what I want to mention is if by chance Hunter doesn't go 2 and say Carter's off the board, or if it won't happen, but if it's between Hunter or Carter, I actually do prefer Hunter. I've been really wanting the team to get more athleticism, have another guy who can really do both. I mean, he's such a rare prospect. It would be awesome if he could play some wide receiver and corner for the Giants, but I don't think that'll happen. So Carter at 3. And then the more I think about it, I don't want the Giants to trade up into the first round to take a quarterback, but I'm not going to be upset if they do. It just really also, of course, depends on what they're giving up. Are they just giving up that second round pick, which is number 34, the second pick in the second round, as well as maybe their compensatory pick in the third round, which is 99 or something like that, to move up 5-6 spots? I wouldn't hate it, but I do feel like they can get a quarterback they like by just sitting at 34 and see who falls there. It may very well be Dart. And one thing I did want to touch on when we were talking about the quarterbacks 5-10 minutes ago was maybe it will be like 2022 in a way. Now, granted, we have a guy that's going to go number 1, whereas 2022 we had no quarterbacks even sniff number 1, but only Kenny Pickett wound up going in the first round. When I was looking back at our mocks from that year, some of us had Desmond Ridder in the late first round, or we had Malik Willis in the late first round because of this thought, and a thought that I vocalize pretty much every year: teams are going to overrate quarterbacks, or they're going to reach for a guy. We see it time and time again, but this isn't a very strong class. So maybe you're right. Maybe Sanders and Dart wind up in the second round. I know you said Sanders will be first round, but it's very possible. Maybe they do slide that far. I can't see it with Sanders, but Dart very well could be there. So to me, ideal first round for the Giants, just take Carter at 3 and wait to see how the board falls and who's sitting there in the second round.
Okay, I like it. I wasn't expecting it, but I like it a lot. Patience pays off when it comes to the NFL drafts. But to the quarterbacks thing, I do want to say I have Sanders 21 overall on my big board, which I did release on thegruelingtruth.com. You can check it out there. And I have Jackson Dart at number 51 on my big board. And again, that doesn't mean I think Jackson Dart is like, some backup quarterback, whatever, middle of the second, third round. Nothing against him. It's just I like 50 guys on the board more than him.
Really?
Now, let's move on. I've got a couple more things. Surprise drops. Guys who you have that you would expect to go high that come round 1 for one reason or another may not only drop down farther than you have thought, but maybe even drop out of the first round altogether. To give you an idea of where my head's at, my guy is Will Johnson. I have him at number 9 on my big board. I'm a huge fan. I don't care about the injury. I don't care about the long speed questions, which are the 2 main things that are pushing Johnson down the board. I think in the right defense, and like a zone cover defense where they play with zone majority of the time, he can succeed, be a playmaker in the secondary. But it sounds like the injury report's going to push him down the board a bit. It sounds like the fact that he didn't really work out leading up to the draft might drop him down boards. That's the one that really sticks out to me because, like I said, I have him 9th overall on my board. Nobody else would really surprise me, I guess, outside of maybe Sanders dropping out of the first round. What about you?
I look at a couple different spots. I mean, the first one that jumped to mind when you brought up the question was some of the safeties, whether that's Malachi Starks out of Georgia or Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. And it's more just because the team's not prioritizing the position as much as they used to. Looking back at previous years, Brian Branch was a safety that didn't even get drafted in the first round when he absolutely should have. And teams are realizing that now. So maybe they won't make that mistake this
Hmm.
year. But he did slide to the Lions, and that was a home run pick for the Lions in the second round. In I believe that was 2023 when they had an outstanding draft class along with Gibbs and Campbell, etc. Um, so Stark's more like the free safety type, rangy, can play the ball. Um, Tape is pretty good, but I just can't see him going as high as some mocks have, where he's number 13 to the Dolphins. I think at best case scenario, he's somewhere in the 20s. Nick Emenwari, at one point I had him in my mock. The next minute, I didn't even have him in the first round. So, and given the fact that I don't even think last year when I was looking back at the draft, I'm pretty sure no safeties went in the first round. Now, granted, it wasn't a great class for them, but just the position not being valued as high, the guys not being like, oh, a no doubt type of prospect. I think they're going to slide, and you might not see a safety drafted in the first round at all this year.
Wow. Gonna disagree with you there. It wouldn't surprise me. Like you said, the position is devalued. But Iman Wari was a superstar at the combine. And I mean, Starks this past season, he wasn't as good as the year before, but he's a do-it-all safety. I love his athleticism on tape, and I think he could fit in almost any defense. But before we move on to the surprise risers, here he is.
There he is.
Our leader, my good pastor. Abdul Carter is a better pick than Ward. Carter is the best player in the draft. Sanders overall 21 is a joke, Dan. Shouldn't be top 50. Well, I mean, I have Jackson Dart outside my top 50. And I mean, Sanders is up there mostly because of the value of the position. You would say, well, then why isn't Jackson Dart up there? That's how little I think of Jackson Dart.
Clearly, you don't like Jackson Dart. We know this.
Like,
Not as a franchise quarterback.
like
But I mean, I can definitely get the knocks on them. I don't see, even though I'm a little more bullish on them than maybe you are or even Mike is. Yeah, I'm still not thinking, oh, they're going to come into the league and take it by storm like Jaden Daniels did last year. I don't think they're going to be franchise quarterbacks in the sense that they're going to be having top 5 years and whatnot. But I think there's some things to like. And the one positive, I guess I'd say about Sanders that people are taking as a knock is his last name and that he's Deion's kid. To me, I look at it the way like he's always had the target on his back, whether it was Jackson State, whether it was Colorado, now obviously going into the league. Trust me, he's been getting people tearing him to shreds and trying to tear him down for years. He's used to it. He grew up with Deion being his father. He's been around professional athletes, professional stadiums his entire life. So I don't think the spotlight's going to be too big for him. The problem is obviously the character concerns. Like, is he going to be too cocky? Is he going to take to coaching or not? From what we hear, the off-field concerns aren't like him partying and getting wasted and doing anything criminal or
Johnny Manziel
or disrespectful to women. So I think he just expects to succeed, which you kind of need that if you're going to be a quarterback in the NFL. But obviously, some of the questions that we've raised ain't going to fly at the next level. You can't be throwing your teammates under the bus. Can't be disrespecting your offensive line. And he might not actually go to a bad team, which is probably a good thing for him. Him sliding might be the best thing in his favor, so he's not expected to start right away or be the franchise savior. And I've seen people that have him outside their top 50. So add Mike to the list.
We'll add Mike to the list. Now, let's talk about surprise risers, guys who may be a little lower on the board that you could see rise up to be surprise first round picks. Like, I'll give you a couple names that I've heard today even. Walter Nolan's one of those, but I wouldn't call that a surprise. I have him at 27 on my big board. He's certainly much more talented than that. It's just a question, the off the field questions and stuff like that lower his stock. But if a team's comfortable with him, I wouldn't mind seeing him in the top 15, to be completely honest. And I have him in the middle of my first round of my mock draft. But him being hyped up, I don't think he's going top 10. I'm not buying the Carolina Panthers rumors. We'll touch on rumors right after this, really. But I'm not going to mention a guy like Nolan. A name I'm looking at, I think we could see somebody like Trayvon Henderson Darian Porter, the corner from Iowa State, potentially move up. I know I've seen Jaden Higgins as a potential first rounder, Trey Amos, Josh Connerly, but for me, I'm going to go with the Trayvon Henderson. I've been seeing his name pop up in mocks. I think I saw somebody mock Henderson to the Broncos today, and I can't recall if it was somebody's final mock or just their most recent one. But yeah, I saw the Henderson, and it's a little rich for my taste. I'm not a fan of that. Not because I don't think he's that good of a player, but I just wouldn't feel comfortable taking him 20th overall. But I also don't value the running back position like I normally do. I do other positions. So, like for example, I have Hampton ranked in the 30s, even though which is actually lower than many others. But that doesn't mean I don't think he could be a good starter in the league or even a bell cow type guy. It's just the position's a little devalued. I'd rather have an athletic edge rusher or a good offensive tackle who's a good pass rusher, pass blocker, or an uber athletic corner, or some linear, a whole bunch of other things before I would take a running back who's not projected to be like a Genty type or like a Zeke when he came out, someone who should be one of the better running backs in the NFL. I think Hampton could be really, really good. I think he can be a really good starter for the right team and the right system. His production was right. His pre-draft, everything up to the pre-draft worked out. The workouts were right. The numbers are right. The analytics are right. The production's right. So Hampton, great piece. But yeah, I don't want to talk anymore about Hampton. What about you, risers? Sorry, I went on a tangent. Risers.
No worries. I'll just touch on that real quick. Well, supposedly Sean Payton might be enamored with Travion Henderson, and that's why you saw him at 20 to the Broncos. And hey, Payton and the regime there won't hesitate to take a player they really like. I mean, we weren't the biggest fans of Bo Nix last year in the draft process, and they wound up taking him at 12, and we weren't buying those rumors, and it did happen. So maybe Travion Henderson is their flavor of the week, as you sometimes like to say, and they'll take him. A lot of people mocking Hampton there. I was just checking my draft notes, and Travion Henderson was someone that they had in as a top 30 visit. So it could happen. I agree with you. Too rich for my blood. I can't see it happening. And really, to me, they should adjust a receiver at that spot, if anything. As far as some risers that I see, I think you look at the offensive line. A lot of times you see a guy that slips into that like 25 to 32 range that a lot of people had pegged as like a second rounder, but gets into the first round. So whether that's one of the Ohio State O-linemen, either Josh Simmons, who generally is getting mocked kind of in that range anyway, but not all the time. So maybe him. Maybe you look at his teammate, I think Donovan Jackson, maybe even Jonah Savanea, another offensive guard, could slip into that first round. So that's really where I look. I would say offensive line, or a lot of times in that same range, you might see a pass rusher that got moved down some people's boards that gets into there. So whether that's Nick Scourton or someone else, I don't really think he'll get in the first round, but I lean more towards the O-line as far as, some risers. So I gave you a couple names there.
I did see a rumor for the Detroit Lions saying that they really like JT Tuimoloau.
He's Ohio State, I think, right?
Yeah, the Ohio State edge rusher. I really got to learn these guys' names, man.
Dude, I was looking for a pronunciation guide. I know Draft Countdown used to do one of those. So, but he sold it years ago, so I didn't see any pronunciation guide this time.
But yeah, so JTT, edge rusher from Ohio State. The Lions are projected to be really into him. The whole leadership thing, that he sets the edge in the run game, power rusher. They want a guy who fits that mold opposite Aiden Hutchinson. So I'm not seeing something like that. I don't think they would go JTT in the first round. That's a bit high for me, but I could definitely see him being like their second round pick, and I wouldn't have a problem with that at all. Now, you did mention Donovan Jackson, and I really like that. He played offensive tackle at Ohio State. He's probably going to be a guard in the NFL. I have him listed as a guard, but if a team's feeling squirrely and they want to give him a shot at tackle, why not? Start him at tackle and then kick him into guard. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Now, we do have another question. Hold on, let me pull that up now. So, do I want to do it now? Fuck it, let's do it now. So I was thinking of maybe saving it for when I give you guys my top 10 in my mock draft. But Ohio State Buckeye fans question: who do you think Dallas should draft? Who do you think they will draft? So those are two different questions: who we think they should and who we think they will. Um, that's a good question. Thank you, Ohio State Buckeye fan, for tuning in and asking us that question. Um, for me, in my final mock, I have them taking Ted McMillan, 12th overall, wide receiver from Arizona. And I mean, the thought process behind that's a very simple one. Give Prescott, who's coming off injury, give Prescott more talent. They have a questionable running back room, but outside of CeeDee Lamb, they have nothing at the receiver position. Jalen Tolbert, he's had 3 years to show, and he's shown nothing. Jonathan Mingo, they got him in a trade from the Carolina Panthers. He has shown absolutely nothing thus far in his career. And I'm not going to bet on either one of those guys shaping up to be a useful outside starter if CeeDee Lamb plays mostly in the slot in 3 wide sets. So I would want a true outside guy. I think Ted McMillan can be a perfect fit in that offense. I've also mocked Golden to them in that spot previously. And what was the other position I think I gave him? I think I gave him a defensive tackle early on. So I could definitely see him addressing the defensive line. They have Maisie Smith, first round pick from 2023. They did re-sign Osa to start at D tackle on the inside, but they have really nothing behind them. I know there's rumors that they might be into what's his face?
What position? I can't go. What's his
Nolan from Ole Miss. So there's rumors that popped up today that they might be interested in him at 12th overall. But I'd say if not wide receiver, they should probably address the offensive line. I hate that they have Brock Hoffman and Robert Jones currently slated to maybe compete for the right guard spot. Terrence Steele at right tackle has missed time. I feel like every year he misses multiple games. But regardless, you're going to want to shore it up. You're going to want to make sure the wall in front of Prescott's right. So I think they'll be addressing your offensive line early, maybe not round 1, depending on who's on the board. If like Kelvin Banks is maybe there or something like that, maybe they go O-line. But I think more than likely they'll address that on the second or third day of the draft. What do you think, Bob?
As for me, first I'll address, yes, I'm a Giants fan, but I can certainly look at things objectively. I'm not, some 14-year-old fanboy who's going to look through red, white, and blue shaded glasses. So objectively looking at it for the Dallas Cowboys, going to echo a lot of what you said. So in my first mock draft, I had them taking Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. I really love his tape. He's super quick. He ran a 4.28 or 4.29, but it also shows up on tape. There's another receiver, maybe we'll get to him, maybe we won't, who ran a fast 40, and I'm like, when I watch the tape, this guy's not that fast, maybe only linearly. So I'm going to say Matthew Golden is definitely an option. If Ted McMillan's there, which even in my first mock and probably my final, I don't think he's going to be available at 12, but that would be perfect for them. I mean, that would be a home run pick, in my opinion. I love McMillan. He's my number 1 wide receiver in this draft. I'm counting Hunter more as a corner, but even as a receiver, it's arguable to me to put McMillan there. He's just a prototype with the size, the speed, the fluidity. To me, he's baby Mike Evans, essentially. So I'd say it's either one of those receivers, and then certainly offensive line could be addressed as well. The left side looks set with Guyton and Smith, but you mentioned all the other pieces, definite question marks. So maybe they go for another Texas product like Kelvin Banks. I don't know if they want to move Tyler Guyton around again. So to me, it's really wide receiver. Maybe if you're looking outside the box, maybe they go with a corner. Maybe they take another Texas product in Jahdae Barron at corner. I don't see that, though. I think they address the offense. I really don't think they go running back. Obviously, they would love to get Ashton Genty, but there's no way he's getting to 12. I don't think Omarion Hampton's worth taking at 12. So to me, Golden, McMillan, one of those that's there. If they don't love them, yes, they're going to pivot to the offensive line.
Offensive line, Genty, if he happens to drop, would be a gold mine for them because their whole gaping hole at running back. But I think those realistically are their most likely scenarios, I think, at this point. And let me see, what do we got going on here? So my allergies are killing me, man. So I'm going to jump right into my top 10. We're about 35 minutes in. I'm going to reveal my top 10 of my final mock draft. Mock draft 4.0, I think. And maybe I give you guys a little bit after, but not too much, because again, I want you to go to the gruelingtruth.com and check it out there. But let me, without further ado, here's the prettiness. All right,
Let's see.
here we go. So let me see how this looks on the screen. So it's got 4. Okay, so it's got the top 4. Okay, so I got Cam Ward 1, lock that in. Travis Hunter 2, I feel like that's a lock at this point. Abdul Carter 3, like I said earlier, and Will Campbell 4. Pretty chalky, 1 through 4. I don't think Campbell maybe should go that high. There are a lot of questions about whether he can be a left tackle in the NFL despite having success there in college at LSU.
Whoa.
Having
That's
success.
a lot for left tackle, damn.
But yeah, no. So that's the chalky top 4. Now, I said, Bob, in our text and messages that I was thinking my mock's going to be chalky. I lied. I lied entirely, and I'm sorry. I don't want to lie to you, but I did.
Buying the rumors.
I'm buying the rumors, dude. So one of my questions was, are you buying these rumors? And some of these rumors include Genty going 5. Maybe where's Tyler Warren going? Are the Raiders going offensive line or defensive line? Who's trading up? Who's trading down? What's going on? I'm buying the rumors. I'm trying to be right. I'm trying to get this right. Personally, I would take Mason Graham at 5 overall. He's the popular pick. He's been there for everyone from the very beginning of mock draft season. But it doesn't sound like he'll be the pick, which sounds kind of weird to me considering how bad Jacksonville was last year against the run, how bad they were getting pressure despite having really quality edge rushers. There was nothing else on that team. So I think they could use a guy like Mason Graham, but it doesn't look or sound like that's the case. And I absolutely refuse to put Tet McMillan there, even though, yeah, sure, that fits. Big body receiver, yada, yada. That's what T-Lo likes. But not a fan. Not buying the Tet McMillan 5. So I went with the next best thing. I bought the rumor of Ashton Genty. So I got Genty 5th overall. Armand Membu, the right tackle from Missouri, going 6 overall to the Raiders. They cock blocked the Jets, who I would have had Membu going there. But instead, the Jets pivot, take Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State, who they've been heavily linked to, give Justin Fields an extra weapon. And then finally, I got Jalen, not finally, but next I got Jalen Walker going to 8th overall to the Carolina Panthers, the linebacker extraordinaire from Georgia. He could go 7 to the Jets. He could go 6 to the Raiders, or he could drop entirely from there. There's rumors that the Panthers want to trade out of this spot and trade down. I'm not buying that, and I'm not really doing trades in my mock, so I'm not projecting that here. It's just worth mentioning. But that's Genty, Membu, Warren, Walker, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then Michael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia, going 9, and Mason Graham, 10 to the Bears. Now, the Michael Williams, I've had that pretty much locked in for some time now. But Mason Graham, I didn't really know where to put him, and I felt dirty dropping him out of the top 10 because, yes, he's got short arms. Yes, he's listed under 300 pounds when he was listed like 320 by Michigan. But I don't care. I don't care that he's got shorter than preferred arms. I don't care that he's under 300 pounds. In fact, the fact that he did what he did on tape, the fact that he was so dominant as an interior presence with shorter arms and, with, lacking the girth, being under 300 pounds, he was still throwing dudes around. He was still getting pressure up the middle. The hands are violent. He's got a nonstop motor. I've heard nothing bad about the kid outside of his arm length and his weight, and I don't care about either of those two things. I think he's one of the top 3 or 4 prospects in this class, and the sheer fact that he could even drop out of the top 10 is ridiculous to me. I hate it, and I refused to do it. And in this case, Chicago 10th overall taking Mason Graham is best player available because let's be honest, their defensive line is coming together. They added pieces this offseason, but this interior defensive line is gross. Now, my computer's a little slow, but Grady Jarrett, okay, great. They signed him as a free agent from Atlanta. It's a 3-year deal, but really they can opt out after next season and only be on the hook for $4 million of dead cap. And he's already 32 years old. So he'll be 34 after next season. Cut that man, save some money, and then you'll have maybe Gervon Dexter Sr., former Florida Gator, lined up next to Mason Graham. And I mean, with those two guys, Montez Sweat on the outside, with Deo Adeyingbo opposite of Sweat, that could be a really nice front four for the Bears. And I mean, we just saw the Philadelphia Eagles win a Super Bowl with an elite defensive line just absolutely eating Pat Mahomes' food and absolutely eating that Kansas City Chiefs offensive line up. And they won a Super Bowl with that elite defensive line. I think teams are going to want to replicate that during the draft. I think we saw a lot of teams focus on the offensive and defensive lines a lot this offseason. The Cardinals, for example, are a team that stands out as one of the teams that really put a lot of investment in their defensive line. They signed a few starters this offseason. And I mean, that's league's a copycat league. So maybe the Bears see a guy like Graham on the board and say, you know what, let's end that slide. And then for New Orleans, for Michael Williams, they're not taking a quarterback that high. That rumor, I buy. I don't think Dart is worth that pick. Even if they like him, they can trade back up into the first round for him. I don't think Sanders goes here at this point. It doesn't sound like he would be the 9th overall pick. It sounds like they're going to want to shore up that defense. So if they don't trade down or up or whatever for a specific target and they don't decide on Mason Graham, I think Michael Williams would be a perfect fit for them out in New Orleans.
They definitely could go defense. A few different defensive players, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, if Carolina doesn't take Walker, I think that's in play too. Michael Williams, obviously, you have him mocked there. I also look at Shamar Stewart, who to me, it's too high for 9, but he kind of fits the profile of the defensive ends that New Orleans typically likes. He has that prototypical size of being like 6'5", 260. Didn't have a ton of production at Texas A&M, but was really close on a lot of plays, did generate a lot of pressure. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think Saints are going quarterback at 9 after all the information we've gotten over the last few weeks. Granted, like you even started this with, it's do you buy the rumors? You're buying the Genty rumor, which I'm still not sold on myself. And, you know, besides the Saints, I do think that's probably where this draft starts. I think the Patriots, yeah, maybe they could take Genty. Maybe they could even go Membu if they're so inclined. But I do think they'll go with the safe pick, Will Campbell, really address more left tackle than right tackle, him being left, Membu being right, or, you know, what everyone expects him to play in the league. Even if he does have to wind up moving a guard. I mean, the Patriots have needs all across the offensive line. But when I'm looking at the Jaguars, I'm like, I could talk myself into any of these guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, makes a whole lot of sense when you got Mason Smith and Davon Hamilton in the middle of your defense. And obviously, you look at rankings, they were piss poor against the run last year. Then Ted McMillan, I don't think he's going to go to 5, but they could absolutely use him at receiver opposite of Brian Thomas. But they did just invest in Brian Thomas last year. He had an outstanding year. Ty Warren, another guy. I mean, they lost Evan Ingram to the Broncos in free agency. Well, they did cut him. Brenton Strange had a couple moments last year. But again, big target for Trevor Lawrence. They did lose Christian Kirk. They really don't have much to speak of on the outside of Brian Thomas. I just feel like Genty's such a luxury pick for them because, yeah, ETN's not that great. Bigsby showed flashes, but I think you can get by with those guys. I'd rather give a weapon to Trevor Lawrence or shore up a defense that has a lot of question marks outside of Walker and Allen.
I thought maybe giving him Tyler Warren, but there's absolutely no buzz about that. I don't even think they met with him, although Warren hasn't really met with many teams this cycle. But like I thought about maybe Warren instead of Ted McMillan because he had Brendan Strange there, but they can run a 2 tight end offense.
Like we were talking about today, Gladstone, their new GM, comes from the Rams, and the Rams are a team that they don't care about those visits. They don't have many in-person visits. Jaguars only met with maybe 6 or 7 guys, I think, between like private meetings between the combine and having them in person. So they follow that same model basically, and you really can't get a full read on what they're going to do. So a lot of these rumors are generated by the people that are plugged into the NFL, maybe the Schefters of the world, the Pelisseros, the Ian Rappaports. So it wouldn't shock me, but I just think it's a misuse of a 5th overall pick for a team that just has a bevy of needs. As much as I love Ashton Genty, it's nothing against him. It's more about what the Jaguars should do to be in the best position to succeed.
Watch, yo. After all this BS, Genty's the pick's still going to be Mason Graham 5th, and Genty's going to go 10th to the Bears. After all that BS, watch. But since I showed I gave you guys my top 10, and I kind of scrolled down a little further, forgetting that I'm still sharing this screen. So F it, we'll do it live. I'm going to show you the next couple of picks. I'm going to show you up to the Cowboys because I already said that they're getting Ted McMillan in my final mock. So I'll show you San Fran first, 11th overall, taking Kelvin Banks. They've met with him. They've done a lot of work on him. I think they're going offensive line or defensive line. If Mason Graham is still on the board, maybe they move up to trade for him. He would be a perfect piece inside for them because as of now, I hate their defensive tackles. And they like having a nice rotation up front. That's been one of the strengths of the 49ers for the last few years, is having a nice group to rotate at end and at tackle. And they're really lacking in depth now after all their free agent losses over the last couple of years and whatnot. So I think Mason Graham would be a great piece for San Fran. I came this close to putting Mason Graham at number 11, but I didn't know who I would put for Chicago at 10. I didn't want to give them Kelvin Banks. It feels a little weird, but maybe he could start at left tackle for them over Braxton Jones for the Bears, which would work fine. For the 49ers, Banks would be their right tackle, at least to start, because let's be honest, their right tackle currently penciled in sucks. And once his face retires at left tackle, he can move from right tackle to left tackle and take over for him. Trent Williams, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So Kelvin Banks, number 11, and then Ted McMillan, number 12, to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to stop sharing before I scroll.
So we saw 12, and I could tell it was probably Banks because I could see the burnt orange, the college logo, even though it didn't show the name. I know you eventually scrolled by it, but I'm saying, like, even when you were hanging at 10, I was like, yeah, that's got to be Banks. I don't think it's Barron. I don't think it's Golden to the 49ers. So I think you made the right choice showing at least a 12.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. I feel better now that I showed a little more leg. But I mean, for me, I think that's it.
Is that it? It just
Bob, do you have any final thoughts?
Sorry, I didn't hear anything you said.
It
just cut out. So what did you say?
Oh no, I was just saying anything.
Great, and it cut out again. So I think that you're asking for final thoughts from me. So
anything more on your end? Any final questions, thoughts, or anything like that before we
going on?
It's not working for you. It looks good for my end.
All right. So you asked final thoughts, I'm guessing. Yeah, it's kind of working. Okay. Yeah. So I've been working on my mock draft as well. I'm not going to go quite as chalk, but I do agree definitely with your first 4. I think that's probably how it's going to go down. And even last year, it was pretty chalky. I mean, everyone wasn't totally certain what the Chargers would do at 5, but they kind of figured it was going to be a tackle or Malik Neighbors. So they wound up going with Joe Alt. Some thought maybe Latham could have been at 5. So it's not totally unusual nowadays for the first 4 or 5 picks to be nailed. But yes, it's going to be really hard to get all of them in the top 10. Obviously, you're not going to get all 32 right, but it could get interesting. I do think there will be a decent amount of trades. I don't think it's going to get crazy like some people speculate, but I certainly could see a top 10 trade. Maybe not a major one, but maybe the Colts jump up to 10 to get a tight end, especially if Warren's still there. So that's one thought I had. Obviously, earlier I mentioned I think the safeties might fall. You disagreed. That's all well and good. And other than that, I think the edge rushers are really interesting to me. I mean, there's some guys, it could go as high as 9 to the Saints, whether it's Williams or Stewart or Mike Green, whoever. But at the same time, some of these guys might get pushed down for various reasons that are pretty legitimate. Maybe Mike Green because he's not big enough to set the edge as either 4-3 D end or 3-4 outside linebacker. Or maybe Shamar Stewart, they're going to say, well, he didn't produce in college, so why am I going to invest a top 20 pick in this guy? And maybe he slides till late first. So I think that's one of the more interesting positions here. There's a lot of good options at pass rusher, but they could be anywhere littered throughout the first round.
Okay. And did you want to touch anything else on your mock or anything?
I didn't finish my mock, admittedly, but I do see Ted McMillan getting in the top 10. I'm not buying that, oh, he's on such a slide. And I mean, it would be a great pick if he's there for the Cowboys at 12, and I hate it as a Giants fan, but I think it would be an outstanding pick for them. But I don't know. It's just the fact that the Panthers have been so penciled in with Jalen Walker at 8 just makes me uncertain about that. They could go with another pass rusher. I just kind of alluded to pass rushers being, it depends on what you want to run as a defense. I know there's a lot of things to like about Walker. I just think there's a little too much boom or bust since he only measured, I think, like 6'1.5" or so at the combine. So it just might be hard for him to be an edge rusher, even though, yes, they run a 3-4, so you can kind of live with it more in that position. But, some think he might be an off-ball linebacker. So I think 5 is obviously where it could be interesting with the Jaguars because they could go so many places. I think the Jets, it's going to be Membo or Warren, whoever's there. But I look at 8. 8 is somewhere where I think there's a lot of possibilities. You said before they could trade down. Could see that as well. Those two teams, there's so many different options that they could use. I mean, obviously there's a lot of teams in the top 10 that have a variety of needs, but to me, the Jaguars and Panthers stand out as two where it's kind of hard to pinpoint, even though people have been mocking the same guys for a while.
Yeah, like I didn't want to put Ted McMillan 5th, but if he went 5th, whatever. I'm not gonna kill him for it. Like I said, I got a top 10 grade on him as it is. So if he goes 10 or 12 or 13 or whatever, it's not that big of a reach if he goes 5 or 8.
Yeah, do you buy him sliding though? Because some have him going in the 20s. I don't get it, especially how it's produced these days.
I buy some teams having a higher grade on Golden because that's just the way the NFL draft is. Some teams think Loveland is a top tight end. Some teams think Warren's a top tight end. So it's one of those years where scheme fit really matters and how teams feel about a guy's character and whatever really matters. But nah, the farthest I could see Tet sliding is mid-teens at the very worst. I would be shocked if he fell into the 20s or the second round or something ridiculous like that. Be absurd to me.
Yeah, I agree. I can't see it. And rookie receivers have been just doing so well over the last 5 years or so, maybe even 10. I just can't see him sliding that much. Maybe, yes, someone goes ahead of him, but not by a lot.
So to put a little bow on everything, one last thing I do want to say for the mock while I was doing it, teams that gave me second pause, like what they're going to do at that pick. The Dolphins, they can go corner, they can go safety, they can go offensive line. The Colts can go in a number of directions. The Cardinals can go in a number of directions. The Bucks are all over the place, but I think they're going defense. Denver is all over the map, from Trayvon Henderson, like we said, to Loveland at tight end, to a receiver, trading up, trading down, and everything in between. Denver was a crazy team. Minnesota's tricky just because they only have 4 picks. They're a very popular trade down candidate, and Washington's another popular trade down candidate as well. But they didn't really give me a problem. If they stick, I think they go probably defensive line as well. And that's a thing that you're probably going to see a lot of in the first round. This class is deep at defensive line. There's a lot of interesting options at edge rusher. So we're gonna see a lot of defensive linemen and edge rushers going in the first round. And we're going to see a lot of, a few offensive linemen, I think, going in that 20 to 28 range as well at the end of the first round. So keep an eye out for that. But with all that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Dan Kornhauser. Think this is Feelin A Draft. Follow me on Instagram. Follow on Twitter. It's at DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. That's our thing on Twitter or X, whatever. Give us a like, give us a follow. If you guys have any questions, submit them in one of our videos. We're on YouTube, Facebook, on X. I think they also stream on what's the video game? Twitch.
Oh, Twitch, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're streaming on Twitch. I don't know if this episode's going to stream. Maybe they'll put it on later, but yeah. So we're all over the place. Follow us all there. Bob, any final word?
Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue. Everybody enjoy the NFL draft. Go to thegruelingtruth.com. Check out my top 100. Check out my final mock draft. I will be posting a whole bunch of stuff after the draft, winners, losers, best available, undrafted free agent stuff, all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah, it's draft season. Enjoy. Thank you guys for tuning in. For Bobby Hunt, I'm Dan Kornhauser. This was Feelin A Draft on the Grueling Truth